Hi, Democrats. Today is Wednesday, November 1st, and it's time for the Chair's Daily Live. Happy Wednesday. So I've been covering a lot of, kind of health heavy topics, even though we are in the holiday season. And I've neglected to say Happy Hanukkah. And to my Jewish friends, I apologize. Happy Hanukkah. I know I'm several days late, but I do recognize and appreciate that there are holidays being celebrated and commemorated as we speak. So usually during holiday season, you like to only talk about light things and be happy and cheery, and that's what I want to do. Um, However, I'm a citizen of this world, and things keep happening. And so yesterday there was yet another school shooting. It wasn't in Oklahoma, and so I imagine you wonder, why am I talking about it? Because I like to stay local, but I'm talking about it because Oklahoma is. Our legislators are trying very hard to make Oklahoma sort of the gun state. So I kind of want to talk about common sense gun laws, and I want to be very clear about that. I'm not coming for anybody's guns. Be clear about that. I'm not coming for anybody's guns. And I won't be characterized as the Democratic Party that's just out there trying to take guns. What the Democratic Party wants is common sense gun laws. If you have to have a gun, if you feel you want to have a gun, if you think you want to be a gun collector, okay, fine. But buy your guns legally, go through a background check, and then handle your guns in a way that is safe. And that, and we are now suffering the consequences of a gun in a home that wasn't handled safely. Now, this is not my subject. This is not a subject that I am a subject matter expert on. I have some thoughts, I have some ideas, but I am not the subject matter expert. And so I decided that what I needed to do was bring on a subject matter expert so that you guys can get facts. So you could get somebody who is a little bit more passionate and knowledgeable. Oh no, Calvin, I am trained. I have taken concealed carry and I'm a pretty good shot. I choose not to have a gun. I choose not to have a gun, but that doesn't mean I'm coming for yours. Let's make sure that we put a pin on that. I get the choice to not have a gun if I choose to not have a gun. And in Oklahoma, that feels like it's some kind of sin, but it shouldn't be. I should be able to choose. So let's talk. Let's talk to the gun expert. I want to bring on the co-chair. He'll correct me if I'm wrong. Of Moms Demand Action, Every Gun, Every Town USA, Joshua Harris Till. I messed that up. What is your title?
State chair, state chapter lead of Moms Demand Action Oklahoma. But I'm also one of the fellows for every town for gun safety nationally. So we've been doing this work for a very long time. Also working with Center for American Progress and their gun violence prevention efforts. So literally in every space that we can get into, we try to advocate for common sense gun laws.
So before we get started, because I'm going to ask you a whole bunch of questions, and I'm gonna kind of get into this. Are you coming for folks' guns?
I am not. I am actually a gun owner, and I just got a new gun. It'll be
Belated
delivered.
happy birthday.
It'll right my birthday. It was a birthday present, so I got to go pick that up. I think it got delivered to the gun store today, and so I got to go over to the gun store and get it picked up and brought home. So
Okay.
we're not coming for your guns. We are coming for the amount of education you have on guns, whether or not you know how to safely store your guns, whether you know how to safely use your guns, clean your guns, explaining to you that you are not Rambo, and in a situation where gun violence breaks out, no matter what you think that you would do in that situation, the reality is you probably won't, and you become more of a liability because of it.
Okay. And so I was saying to Calvin, who told me to get trained on guns. So I come from a family of folks who earned a living by carrying guns. And so I was raised with firearms in the home. And there were very clear rules about the firearms that were in our homes. They were locked up, and we weren't allowed to go anywhere near the safe. They were locked up. We knew where they were, but we weren't allowed to go near the safe. And consequently, we had no accidents. But in this instance, what happened yesterday in Michigan, the dad had just bought the gun.
4 days prior, had just bought the weapon that was used in the shooting at the high school.
So that fits in with the statistics where it says that 68% of guns used by youth are weapons found in the home.
For sure. And it points out the much larger problem that safe storage is something that people really don't do, and they don't factor into the price of purchasing the gun. It's one thing to say, I'm going to buy a new gun. This gun costs $500. But if you aren't also factoring in, well, this gun safe that I'm going to use, or this gun box, or this gun lock that I'm going to use costs an extra $100, we are trying to focus on people understanding that is a part of the purchase of the gun. If you don't have a safe storage container to go with it, or if you can't afford a safe storage container to go with it, you can't afford the gun.
Just like if you are buying a car, but you can't afford insurance, you can't afford the car.
Right. Or you can't afford fuel, like whatever you have to do to make it make sense in your mind. If you can't afford to make sure that gun won't be improperly used, if you're not responsible enough to take full responsibility for that weapon, then you are not in a position to where you should be getting it at that time. That doesn't mean that nobody can have guns. That doesn't mean we need to take everybody's guns, but we need to make sure that education is a priority. This is something I'm passionate about. Oklahoma became a permitless carry state, and all that did was take away the minimum amount of training that people were getting, which was like a one-day course, and 50 rounds shot on the range. 50 rounds shot on the range does not prepare you to use that gun in any form or fashion. And so many people who got that training and have their license are not going back to the range and making sure that they're keeping their aim steady and true. And that's another big part of the issue, is that the minimal requirements that we had was that you take this training class, but really there needs to be a continuous effort made to make sure people are educated on how to use their weapons.
I agree. If you're going to own a weapon, you should, if you are a police officer, if you are a probation officer, if you work at a prison and have a job that requires you to have a firearm, you have to qualify with that firearm on a regular basis. You have to go and prove that you can still, be safe with that firearm, aim with that firearm, and safely handle it around other people. And I think that that's kind of the minimum that we should have for all the people who are walking around, with a weapon on their hip at the grocery store.
I couldn't agree with you more. And all responsible gun owners hate seeing these people who feel like they need to walk around with, a long rifle in Walmart. It's just not responsible. There's no threat there that you're going to be able to stop. And the reality is, I've worked for police officers as well. When an active shooter situation occurs, all the officers are told is that there's an active shooter situation. Their job is to come in, identify the threat, and eliminate it. And so if they come in and they see you trying to be the hero, they could very well mistake you for being the person who's the threat. And then you've now put your life in danger because you didn't want to do the responsible thing and wait for the authorities to show up. Obviously, that's not the case. Every situation, you can't wait for the authorities to show up, but the authorities show up trained on how to deal with this situation. And if you act incorrectly, you could very well be arming the shooter in that situation with another weapon.
So Oklahoma, in the last legislative session, passed a law that says that we are now a Second Amendment sanctuary state. So as someone who is researching gun laws and trying to educate folks on gun safety, common sense gun use, the fact that we are to a sanctuary state, how does that make you feel? Couldn't even get that out.
The craziness of it is it invites folks to come to Oklahoma who may or may not have the right to carry guns in other states. So that means we're not trusting the police officers, the judges, whoever's the federal government, whoever is making this decision that this person doesn't need to have a gun. We're saying, oh, we ignore that and we want you to come here and live your life with your guns. But the reality is more so than putting our people, regular Oklahomans like me and you in danger, we're putting our officers in danger. What people don't know is that Oklahoma City is like ninth in the nation for gun homicides. And so when officers approach these situations where somebody has a gun, it is very likely that they're going to think that this situation can go wrong immediately. And they think that because historically the numbers say so. So when we're inviting more people in, we're putting more pressure on our officers to have to deal with folks in this situation, the uncomfortability that's making people call the police to say, hey, this person has a gun in here. We all remember the picture of the guy last year with his guns all around him at the bar, Twin Peaks, unnecessarily, right? Making people uncomfortable, making people in that establishment have to engage with this person to ask them to leave, not knowing whether or not the situation can go very negatively. But at that same time, something that people don't talk about is there was a 6-year-old who found a gun in the bathroom. Somebody
Yeah.
had set it on top of the toilet, and that's the reality that we live in. There are discharges that are accidental discharges that are happening all across our states. There are people who are losing their weapons. There are weapons who are being stolen. And the unfortunate reality of COVID is so many people are now have now been plummeted into poverty that they're looking for opportunities to make money, and they're looking for opportunities to break into folks' homes and break into people's cars, and it's creating more and more of this negative atmosphere where somebody's like, I have to have a gun to protect myself, but the criminals are also saying I have to have a gun because they may have a gun. And so now this situation where some a stereo could have been stolen out of your car, it can now turn into a shootout between you and another person, and that's the danger of it. Like,
And then your neighbors,
right,
right? Because he's trying to break into your car to steal your radio. You get out there, I'm in the house. But I could be collateral damage because chances are, if you have a gun because you're scared, if you have a gun because you're involved in criminal activity, not sure how great of an aim you are.
I can safely tell you 80% of the people who have guns in this state don't go to the range on even a monthly basis. And if you go to the range, you'll quickly become familiar with all of the people who are in the range because it's the same folks who go all the time. It's not a lot of new people in there. It's not a lot of folks saying, hey, I need to brush up on my skills. And 80% is being generous, just because I don't want to speak too out of turn, but 80% of gun owners are not going to the range even once a month to make sure they know how to use their weapons.
So that brings me back to the school shooting. So already, so we are 60 days out. We are 60 days out from the legislative session. It's December 1st. They go back on February 1st. And some legislators have already submitted some bills, are packaging their bills, and there are already some gun bills for consideration. And one of them is to broaden the amount, the type of person who can carry a gun at a school. And so I want to bring this to everybody's attention because this is a call to action. We need to be calling our legislators and letting them know that this is a bad, ill-advised decision. Or at least that's what I think. What do you think, Josh?
Here's the thing that people don't understand. In a world where we give all of the teachers guns, right? And the teachers are prepared and trained, fully ready to defend the classroom should they need to. When the situation occurs, like what just happened in Michigan, this teacher is not shooting some unnamed assailant. She's shooting a student who
That
has
she
been in
knows.
her class,
That she
that she
knows.
knows, that she probably has a relationship with, that she's gone out of her way to be nice to because maybe they don't have as many friends as some of the other students. This isn't, bad guy number 4. This is Timmy, who sits
Right.
2 rows away from my desk. the trauma that we could be creating in a situation like that is so significant. But let's even dive deeper than that. There have been all of these videos coming up recently in TikTok trends about students assaulting teachers. Let's let's look at the reality that these teachers aren't perfectly trained in these situations, and if they feel threatened, they might feel the need to defend themselves. And now they have a gun that they don't necessarily know how to use well, because the requirements on having a gun in the classroom are so bad or so poor that we're not only putting that student in harm's way, but if they don't have good aim, we're putting other students in harm's way. And then if another teacher or resource officer hears gunshots going off, then they rush into the classroom. It's pandemonium. This is not well informed. This is not researched. This is not in any form or fashion an intelligent decision for us to make, because every single variable that exists creates a situation where this will be chaotic. There is no situation. If that teacher had a gun in the classroom and she shot that student before the student could shoot too many other students, then this teacher is now traumatized from shooting this student. If there's guns in the school and the student knows that, that means the student comes in and aims for the teacher first, takes out the one line of defense that that classroom may have. We're making our teachers targets. In every single way that you can look at this, this is a horrible idea that will not work the way that people think it will. And there's too many people in this state who think that they are Rambo or James Bond or whatever fictional character that exists, who would, like, if I was in that situation, you would get shot immediately. You would get shot immediately because you would do something dumb to draw attention to yourself that would get you shot. You're not prepared for these kind of instances, and our officers oftentimes aren't as prepared as they need to be. That's why they continuously go through this training. And we talk about the school in Florida, the Parkland shooting. The officer who was there knew that they weren't qualified to go, and everybody's like, why didn't that person run in there and save the day? They knew they weren't qualified for that situation, so they waited for the officers who were. You are not prepared for these situations. Our teachers have enough work that they have to do, that they are underpaid for, that you trying to pretend like they need to also be a faux security guard is absolutely ridiculous, and it is not fact-based. There is no research that supports arming teachers. And that is the full end of story argument that I think people need to understand about it. They're just making this up.
So you say end of story, but I'm going to ask the question. What do you say to the people who say, I feel safer if I have, that the government is overreaching and I should be able to take my gun as long as I bought it legally any and everywhere I am?
You don't know enough about guns. Is the long and short of it. You feel safer because you have a gun, especially if you're carrying that gun openly, especially if you got a long rifle across your chest. You are just a target. You are making yourself a target in any sort of battle situation, in any sort of tactical situation, in any situation where you might have an opportunity to play Rambo. You're the first person that they're taking out. People don't generally, when they're going to do an action like this, walk in and immediately start shooting. They scope the place out. They look for where security is. They look for who the threats are. And so when they come back in, those are the people they go for first. You can say that you have the freedom to carry your gun with you into Walmart. And for all intents and purposes, you do, except it's a private business and Walmart doesn't want you bringing guns in there. But it doesn't make you safer. Being knowledgeable, being responsible, and concealed is the best way that you can be, because you know what you're doing in those situations should they arise. But a lot of times, and I would say 99 times out of 100, in a situation that occurs like that, you will not be looking to be a hero or to save the day. You'll be tactically looking for an opportunity or an opening to see if there's an action that you can take. But what people oftentimes forget is if somebody is shooting to the left and you're to their right and you take a shot at them and you miss, well, now you and everybody around you are now targets. And so you're not just putting yourself in danger, you're putting people around you in danger. I have been in a shootout I know what that's like. And in that situation, even though I was armed, I didn't take any shot because there was a group of 10 people around me. And me missing in that scenario means that I put their lives in danger. It's not just about you. You think that you're safer because you feel like you can protect yourself. But the reality is, it's hard for our officers, again, who are extremely, significantly more trained than the average person to do this job effectively 100% of the time. So the chances of you doing it right is just completely insignificant. The percentage of that, it's dismal.
Well, you did not disappoint. I knew that you would be able to come on and give us a perspective, give us some details that I would miss, because this is an important topic, and I try not to wade into all of these national topics. But so we're looking at a map of the school shootings of 2021 to date. I mean, look at that. It's happening too often, and the fact that our current legislators in the state of Oklahoma want to increase the kind of people that can carry a gun into a school scares me to death. And I don't have kids in the school. I don't live very close to a school, so it's not even really how it'll affect me, but it's about how it affects us as a society. And I'm with you. Our teachers have enough to do. Our teachers have enough to do without also having to provide a security force for the school. And our officers of the law have enough discernment that they're going to have to make about who is the good guy with the gun versus the bad guy with the gun. And I hadn't even thought about the trauma of, you're asking a teacher to shoot someone she knows, someone he knows, someone they know. We're asking a teacher to,
Not just someone they know, a student,
a
a
student,
child.
a
They
student that they know.
these kids 14, 15 years old. Like, our military members deal with PTSD from engaging in situations where children are involved. Why we think that our teachers, who have more of a connection to these students than our militaries do to situations in the battlefield, like, it's it's so significant of a fact that is oftentimes left out of this conversation. We just think teachers want to protect students. They do, but it's also hard for that teacher to have to injure a student in order for them to protect the other ones, and to have to make that decision, and to try to make a split second decision, and then have to think about the thoughts of, did I make the right decision? Could I have done something differently? Did it have to be this way? It's it's a significant weight. I think Charlotte Anderson, she's a kid governor for Oklahoma. She put it best when she said, "We're so concerned about making this a safe place for guns, or sanctuary state for guns, but when are we going to make it a sanctuary state for our students? When are we going to care about our children so much that we are investing properly in education, that we are making sure that guns are not in the schools? If we need resource officers at the schools, that they're there in a position that creates a relationship that's beneficial for students? Like, don't use kids as an argument to put guns in the school if you're not putting resources in the school, because the resources they need are not guns. It's more funding. It's better paid teachers. It's better paid faculty staff. It's counselors who
And
can
it's
actually
less
speak with those
involvement
students.
from people who aren't teachers.
100%. Couldn't have said it better myself.
So that, yes, Charlotte is a wise young lady. Thank you so very much. I'm going to ask everybody who's watching, if they're watching now, if they're watching later, stay tuned. The Oklahoma Democratic Party for sure will be partnering with Everytown USA at some point. We will have a day of action around guns in schools this legislative session, because enough is enough. Enough is enough, and we need to be at the Capitol talking to our legislators. Joshua, thank you so very much for joining me. Everyone else, thank you for joining me. I will be back here tomorrow at 4:15. Have a good evening.